This is your complete guide to using events in the ASM Creations app. Ready to bring your story to life with the events features? Think of events as your story's building blocks. Every important scene, character interaction, plot twist, or memorable moment gets its own event. Let's walk through how to make the most of this powerful tool. Getting started. When you first open the Events section, you'll see a clean dashboard. This is your command center for managing story moments. There's a big pink Create New Event button at the top. You'll need an active subscription to use this. And below that, you'll find all your saved events organized into event positions: main events, subplot events, tertiary events, and undecided events. You can expand and collapse each of these groups to see all the events. Let's create your first event. Click the pink Create New Event button, and boom, you're in the event editor. The app creates a new event with the placeholder title New Event and opens up a form with 5 tabs across the top. Think of these tabs as different aspects of your scene that you can fill out as much or as little as you want. Here's the thing. You don't have to fill out everything right away. Maybe you just have the basic idea for a scene. Start with the General tab, give it a proper title and description, and come back later to add the details. The app saves your work as you go, so you won't lose anything. Starting with the General tab, this is where you start with the basics. First things first, change the new event title to something that actually describes your scene. Maybe it's Sarah discovers the letter, or the big confrontation in the kitchen. Make it something you'll recognize later when you're scrolling through dozens of events. The description box is where you can really go to town. Describe what happens in the scene. The key actions, important dialogue, emotional beats, whatever feels important. Don't worry about perfect prose here. This is your planning space. You might write something like, John finally tells his sister about their father's secret. She doesn't take it well. Big argument ensues. Ends with her storming out and saying she never wants to see him again. If your event is part of a multiverse story, fancy, you'll see a special indicator at the top. That just means this event has significance across multiple timelines. Pretty advanced stuff that the app handles for you. Next is the Attributes tab, bringing your scene to life. This tab is where you add all the people and details that make your scene feel real. Let's start with the event date located at the top. It probably says no date set and mentions that dates are handled through the timeline feature. Don't worry about this for now. You can organize your events chronologically later using the timeline section. Adding characters to your event is straightforward and kind of fun. Hit the pink Add Characters button, and you'll see all the characters you've created in your project. Just check off whoever's in this scene. The app lets you select multiple characters, and they'll appear as little cards you can remove later if you change your mind. Note, POV characters are added in the Chapters section. Next is setting a location, which works the same way. Click the Add Location and pick from the places you've already created. This helps you keep track of where everything happens and can be really useful when you're writing to make sure you're describing the setting consistently. The weather option might seem silly at first, but it's actually pretty useful for outdoor scenes or when the weather affects the mood. Is it raining during that sad breakup scene? Sunny during the happy reunion? These details matter for atmosphere. There are also options for theme and tone. Theme is the big picture stuff. Is this scene about love, betrayal, redemption? Tone is more about the emotional feeling, dark, hopeful, mysterious. These help you keep track of the emotional journey of your story. The subtext option is for those layers of meaning beneath the surface. Maybe your characters are talking about dinner plans, but they're really arguing about trust. Jot that down here. Next in the Plots tab, this tab helps you think about how this event fits into your bigger story. Plot type lets you categorize what kind of scene this is. Is this scene part of the main plot, subplot, or tertiary plot? Pacing is really useful. Is this a fast-paced action scene, a steady story progression moment, or a slow character reflection? This helps you balance the rhythm of your story. You don't want everything to be fast-paced, or your readers will be exhausted. But you also don't want everything to drag. The backstory section is where you can add any relevant history that influences this scene. Maybe there's family drama from years ago that's bubbling up, or a past event that's finally paying off. Write it down here so you don't forget those important connections. Now here's where it gets really interesting. The foreshadowing tools. If you're setting something up in this scene that will pay off later, use these sections. Describe what you're hinting at, how strong the hint should be, and when it'll pay off. The app even lets you mark when you've resolved the foreshadowing, which is incredibly helpful for keeping track of all those story threads. In the plot device section, this is where you can tag the specific storytelling technique you're using in this particular scene or moment. Plot devices are the techniques that help move your story forward or create specific effects. Maybe you're using a red herring to mislead your readers, or there's a MacGuffin that drives the action. Perhaps you're setting up a Chekhov's gun that will pay off later, or using dramatic irony where readers know something the characters don't. This feature helps you track your storytelling patterns and ensures you're using a good variety of techniques throughout your story. It also makes it easy to find specific scenes later when you need to check if you've properly set up that plot device or if you need to add more variety to keep readers engaged. Plus, it's a great way to analyze your story structure and see if you're relying too heavily on certain devices or missing opportunities to use others. Moving on to the Conflict and Narrative tab. This is where you define the dramatic tensions and their impacts for each event in your story. Think of this as your conflict control center for that specific scene or moment. In the conflict section, you can set up the main dramatic tension for this event. You get to choose between two types of conflict: main conflict and subconflict. For the main conflict, this is your primary tension. You can pick from big categories like internal conflict, character battling themselves, or external conflict, character facing outside forces. Once you pick one, you'll get more specific options, like character versus character for interpersonal drama or character versus society for broader social conflicts. Next is the subconflict. This adds layers to your scene. Maybe your main conflict is character versus character, two people arguing. But your subconflict is character versus self, one of them doubting their own position. This creates richer, more complex scenes. In the conflict impact section, this is where you define how this conflict affects your story. You'll choose from impact types like plot progression, which moves the story forward, character development, this changes who your characters are, or thematic reinforcement. This strengthens your story's deeper meaning. You can also set the strength of the impact on a scale, so you know which scenes pack the biggest punch. In the conflict resolution section, here you decide how this particular conflict gets resolved, if it does at all. You can choose from resolution types like victory, defeat, compromise, or sacrifice. You'll also write a description of how it plays out and mark whether it's a satisfying resolution or leaves things hanging. This system helps you track the emotional and dramatic beats throughout your story. You'll be able to see if you're building tension properly, if conflicts are getting resolved in satisfying ways, and whether each scene is actually contributing to your story's momentum. Plus, it makes it super easy to spot if you're relying too heavily on certain types of conflicts or if some plot threads are getting dropped without proper resolution. Finally, in the Management tab, this section helps staying organized. Starting with the events relationships, this section helps manage relationships between events. It's all about relationships. Not just romantic ones, but how events connect to each other. You can link events to show cause and effect. Maybe event A leads directly to event B, or maybe they're more loosely connected. You can set the strength of these connections and describe how they relate. This becomes really powerful when you have a complex story with multiple plot threads. You can literally see how everything connects, which helps with plotting and also with making sure you don't drop any story threads. This tab is also your project management friend. You can set priorities for events. Maybe some are crucial to write first, others can wait. You can create tasks related to the event, like research 1920s fashion for this scene, or figure out the technical details of this heist. The completion toggle is simple but satisfying. Just check it off when you've written the scene. The app tracks when you completed it, which is great for seeing your progress over time. Now, once you've created some events, managing them is pretty intuitive. In the main events view, you'll see them organized in those collapsible groups we talked about. Each event shows its title and whether it's completed. If you want to edit an event, just click the three dots menu and select Edit. If you need to delete one, that option's in the same menu. The search function works really well if you have lots of events and need to find something specific. And those statistics charts update automatically so you can always see how your story is shaping up. Connecting to your timeline. Here's where events really shine. They work together with the timeline feature. You don't have to worry about this when you're first creating events, but eventually, you'll want to organize them chronologically. The timeline section lets you create periods, segments, and sequences, and then you can place your events in the right spots. The app handles all the date management for you, whether you're using regular dates or a fantasy calendar system. Just some friendly tips. Start simple. You don't need to fill out every field for every event. Sometimes all you need is a title and a quick description to capture an idea. You can always come back and add more details later. Use descriptive titles that you'll understand months later when you're scrolling through dozens of events. Chapter 3 scene isn't nearly as helpful as Marcus confronts his ex-wife about custody. Don't stress about getting everything perfect the first time. The beauty of this system is that it grows with your story. As you develop your plot and characters, you can come back and add connections, themes, and details. The completion checkbox is your friend. There's something really satisfying about checking off events as you write them, and it helps you see your progress visually. If you're working on a complex story with multiple plot lines, those event relationships become incredibly valuable. Take the time to connect related events. Your future self will thank you when you're trying to remember how everything fits together. When things don't work. If you're seeing no date set everywhere, don't panic. That just means you haven't set up your timeline yet. Events can exist without dates. You can organize them chronologically later. Can't add a character or location? Make sure you've created them in their respective sections first. The app can only work with what you've given it. If you can't create new events, check your subscription status. The app lets you view and edit existing events, but creating new ones requires an active subscription. Remember, this tool is here to help you tell better stories, not to make your life more complicated. Use what's helpful, ignore what isn't, and don't feel like you have to use every feature for every event. The goal is to have a clear picture of your story so you can write it with confidence. Happy writing!